one more guy coming in. All right, there we go. No more spectators. Let's get this going.
I think it's cool that we have to like cut the amount of spectators.
What do you mean?
It's a good sign as well.
Well, I mean, it's most of our spectators that are in actually the game are like silver and like gold league players, and like I can understand that. Like you, especially if you're coming to Starbow and like you don't know the meta from Brood War the way that we do, you kind of want to get an idea of like what you're going to be facing before you actually jump into it. Because I mean, like last night I played against a friend of mine who is a better. Well, I don't know if he's necessarily better anymore, but he's a comparable StarCraft 2 player to me. But the StarCraft 2 is the only game that he knows. When I played against him in Starbow, he was completely lost. He had no idea how to deal with things like vultures and spider mines. So I can understand why people would want to actually see what they're dealing with before they actually get their feet wet. So here we go. We have our game number 3. This is going to be on the map Circuit Breaker. And we have the winner of the last game triumphing in that base race. He is spawning in the top right, Azz, as the teal Protoss player. And spawning in the bottom right, we have our purple Terran player. He is an NasD.
Necessarily, if he's gonna go for mech, the closer the positions the Terran is to the Protoss, the better. So he should be happy once he scouts. Well, I mean, it's not as close as like let's just say the 11 o'clock and the 2 o'clock are, but it's a little bit better.
Okay, so this is actually going to be. This is actually a real interesting. Going to be a real interesting way, positionally, for both of these players in this matchup, especially if NasD decides he wants to go for mech. The rush distances here are actually not that far apart, not for what mech is normally used to dealing with, and there is quite a few nice positions here that Siege Tanks can abuse to really like choke a Protoss army up. So if AZZ wants to get good engagements, he's going to have to fight him out here in the middle. But again, because this isn't cross positions, he only has to defend against really one angle of attack, which favors the mech player a little bit. We'll have to see how that develops as it comes up. This is already going to be a fast factory here from NasD. Very, very normal. For those of you that are only familiar with StarCraft 2, the StarCraft Brood War metagame for TvP is very different. It is very mech favored for the Terran player. Bio is not nearly as powerful. In Starbow, it's a lot better because of the addition of the Marauder. But in StarCraft Brood War, it was pretty much mech. You only saw mech against Protoss. So this factory going down when it is very, very normal. It is a little defensive. He will be able to get out a fast siege take before he actually decides he wants to take his command center.
Against meching Terran, I love Nexus First. It's like the best build ever.
Yeah, because I mean, why wouldn't you? Because you're dealing with you're not going to be dealing with much aggression, if any. But I mean, you could deal with something like a proxy 2-Rax or something. That's always been viable. Proxy 2-Rax is like, it's about as old as cannon rushing. It's just one of the oldest builds in the game. But he is going to be going for some Dragoon harassment first, which, for what NasD is doing, is not going to do very much. There's already a bunker available. There's already a factory down. But he is going for a fast starport net.
It looks like he's almost fainting an Expo build.
Ooh, this is going to be a Banshee build. Look at this. He's actually lifted this factory up. He's going to be going for he already has that tech lab there. This is going to be a Banshee opener, which is going to be something AZZ should not really be expecting. Now, against Dragoons, Banshees can't actually fight straight up, but he can use it as a harassment tool to kind of keep the Dragoons at home.
It's always diligent for the Protoss to get observers out because of Widow Mines and, Spider Mines. So he's probably going to be taking towards Robo if he's playing standard.
Yeah, but my thing with the Banshees there, here he goes. He is going for that robotics facility. The thing with the Banshee, though, is that Protoss players really often like to go for that early pressure at the front of the Terran base, especially before they have really any kind of significant siege tank presence out on the map. This Banshee will force these Dragoons to stay at home, although it looks from the look of things that, oh no, here he goes. AZZ is going to be moving out with that Dragoon pressure. Now, this is his 3 Dragoons. 3 Dragoons is quite a bit. He's going to need to get down some SCVs to repair that bunker. The Dragoons do outrange the Marines, so even in the bunker, so they're not actually going to be able to fire back at these Dragoons. It's going to be a real scary situation for NASD. AZZ does actually see the Banshee. He is going to cloak it. That cloak Banshee is going to be able to get a couple shots off, but cloak only lasts for a couple seconds, so he has to be very careful how he uses that Banshee. The Banshee is not very powerful.
I don't like that he revealed the Banshee, though.
I don't like it either. But the tank is now out, but that bunker is actually in trouble. He can't afford to lose that bunker. That bunker is the only thing keeping those Dragoons out of his base. The SCVs are being pulled down to repair it, but it's going to be too late. The bunker goes down, and now 3 Dragoons, if properly microed, will actually be able to cause a lot of damage to this army. The Banshee is sitting idle in the Protoss base, not able to actually do its damage. Here it goes. Banshee is going into the main Protoss base. Is going to be able to get some probe kills down. Meanwhile, the Dragoons are trying to focus fire down that one siege tank. A second Banshee is out on the map. It is going to try and deal some damage to these Dragoons. The main Banshee up in the Protoss main is being forced to cloak again as it tries to avoid the Dragoon down on the low ground. But that actually didn't go so bad for the Terran player. I thought that could have been a lot worse from the position that he was in.
Yeah, that's true.
But this is the kind of flexibility that this Banshee provides. These Dragoons are now being forced to come back home. That pressure is going to stop, especially now that Siege Mode is completed for the Terran player. The Command Center is going to come up, although it is a little bit later than I would like to normally see it in my Terran versus Protoss style. Oh, Banshee's going to fly right back in. Cloaking is getting activated, but it is in a really bad position. It might be picked off by those Dragoons.
He's actually scouting everything in the Protoss, too.
Yeah, this is going to be a big 2-base attack from the look of it. This is looking all in, Net.
He has a forge, which is kind of weird for an all-in, but usually you want to be up a base against Terran, so it's just probably leaning towards all-in-ish.
It definitely is. There are 3 siege tanks, though, available. A 4th one is on the way. That bunker is now complete again, although it's not actually loaded full of Marines yet. There is also a Banshee available, just chilling, like, waiting to go back into the natural, and there it goes. Banshee is revealed once again, forcing a lot of these Dragoons to come back over to deal with it. NASD doesn't want to lose that Banshee. He cloaks it. It is out of range again, but nice use of the Banshee, especially in these close air spots.
If Azz tries to go for like a frontal attack, it's probably going to fail. There's too many tanks. There's a bunker.
The tanks aren't even positioned all that optimally. He could position one up on the high ground so the Dragoons can't actually fire back at it. But this command center is now getting completely saturated mineral income. There is no gas actually being taken out yet, and the second factory is going down. So a lot more tanks are going to be coming out, and now spider mine tech is being researched.
I would like to see a wall with the bunker as well, because it'll give the like right now the Dragoons come and snipe off some tanks, but they're probably going to adapt it.
Yeah, there's just too many. Yeah, there's too many tanks. Those tanks do so much damage to Dragoons. Tanks in Starbow actually do 70 damage a shot against armored targets. Their damage is mitigated against lighter units like Zealots, Encirclings, and Marines. But against these Dragoons, they're pretty much the best unit you can actually be fielding against them. Dragoons, if they can close the distance, they can actually kill tanks pretty quickly. But at that range, tanks are perfect. The perfect answer to what Dragoons are on the field right now for AZZ. And it does look like he wants to go for a really big attack here. He is getting Zealot charge up.
Yeah, that's a huge supply block.
Yeah, but
they're slow down his push by like another minute or so.
But a big problem for NASD is that he does not have any vultures out in the field for spider mines, and he doesn't have that wall like you were talking about, Nat. If this push actually comes through, those Zealots are going to be really good against those siege tanks. Those siege tanks, especially in the position that they're in, they're very, very clumped up. They're not spread very well. If he goes for this big Zealot attack, I think he could actually do a lot of damage.
Yeah. He needs to wall, like, right now. Wall.
And AZZ has an observer here. He sees this. He sees the fact that the production facilities for NASD is just getting started. Vulture Tech is really only now getting started. And there's a window of opportunity here, but I don't think he's actually going to take it. Instead, he is opting to go for a Nexus up at the top 1 o'clock position.
Yet. Not yet.
No, isn't it?
More gates. It's 9 gates off of 2 bases.
I don't know. He's got 500. He's got 500 minerals banked up there. I think this is going to be a Nexus. Nope. He's actually dumping all of that back into additional units. So this actually could be an all-in. But his window of time is growing short. Vultures are now on the field. He doesn't want to suicide those vultures into those dragoons. He's going to start planting spider mines. But there's already an observer there available to take out those spider mines with those dragoons.
He'll probably try to do zealot bombs on top of siege line, which is really good against these really clumped up tanks. It's always wise to spread them out.
But NASD is not going to sit still. He's moving out there. Tanks are coming over, but they don't see the dragoons just yet. Late siege on those tanks. He could actually get a pick off on one of them, but no, those dragoons are going to fall back. One dragoon does go down. Those siege tanks again. They do so much burst damage to those dragoons. Vultures are now free to go and do their harassment if they want to, but the third base is not going to be coming up here for NASD. Still no third nexus for AZZ. He is still investing a lot of money into this, and now the Banshee comes back in, does scout the fact that Dark Templar or High Templar are going to be coming out in just a moment here.
Yeah. This guy,
Oh, he could pick this off. Oh no, that one High Templar all by himself. He can't get away. The Banshee picks off a High Templar all by himself. Poor High Templar.
He has a War Prism getting killed right now in the Terran's main.
I think he's trying to pull units back, and then he's going to try and... Well, he doesn't even have units in position to charge the front. I'm very confused.
He forgot that he probably needs to research Warp Gate for him to use the Warp Prism ability. I'm pretty sure he didn't know that.
No.
I thought he was going to go for Zealot Bombs myself, but...
I'm very confused. I am now very confused. Third base is coming up for NASD. And if ACC doesn't take his own third base, okay, here he goes. Nexus is finally going up. But he should already have his Nexus down if he wasn't going for an all-in. He should be on 4 bases right now.
Yeah.
If he was going for just a straight macro game, typically in this matchup, you want to be at least a base ahead of the Terran player. You kind of want to play a lot like a Zerg player in StarCraft 2 would. Against Terran. The Terran army is a lot less mobile, but a lot more powerful. You complement that by having a lot more bases, a lot more money to spend on more units. But these Vultures are going to come in here. They are going to see this base coming down here, and I think this is actually going to trigger a push. I think once NASD sees this, if he does, unless he gives all of his Vultures away, I think this should actually tell him that it's time for him to push.
Oh, he's about to get sandwiched. He needs to get out of there.
Oh no! Don't lose those Vultures! You need those Vultures! Don't throw those Vultures away in ASD! Oh, a lot of Vultures going down for nothing. He was able to pick off some shields from those Dragoons, but no Dragoons actually died to that little engagement right there, and a lot of Vultures actually went down. There is still a Banshee over here picking away very, very slowly at this forge, which is researching +2 weapon attacks. But
that Banshee's been a hero the whole game.
Dude, this Banshee's been such a great scout.
There's one Dark Templar on the field, the hero commander.
Yeah, the one Dark Templar in a field of like just gold Protoss units. That's a lot of High Templar then, Nat. I'm a little like he has Storm, but I mean
Storm is not what you want. You want Arbiter. You want
dude,
the gas for
dude,
Arbiter.
Net, he killed that forge with that Banshee.
That is a hero Banshee.
That Banshee killed that forge and stopped +2 upgrades. I don't know what's going on. These players were playing so much better when they were playing PvP, but now it's getting real sloppy here. Both sides, like, just not the greatest control from either side here. But this tank count is so it's so scary. This tank count, and like the Vulture numbers are going to force this army. He does see everything in that Protoss army, which is going to tell him that he needs to actually get his tanks into a defensive position immediately.
Yeah, but he needs to start teching towards science vessels, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they have EMP anymore, actually. So
They do. They do have EMP.
Okay, yeah. So science vessel is what he wants.
There is a base being taken up in the top left. That's a ninja expansion that I do not think is going to be scouted by our Protoss player at all.
It's a standard NASD expansion right there. He did it last game, PvP. Yeah, but he needs arbiters really bad. There's no way you can straight up fight this army without him.
Well, he is getting down Stargate now, but I mean, the bigger problem for him is that he's pretty much allowed the Terran player to get that third base relatively uncontested. So this army for NASD is getting very, very scary. He's getting +1 weapon upgrades already. I think he's going to try and drag those spider mines back into those tanks. Those tanks are still not split up all that well. They are
Yeah.
going to they are going to be able to cover the entirety of that ramp, so that if AZZ decides he wants to charge like across one of those bridges, he will get slaughtered. But if he decides he wants to go for some more like multi-prong attacks, like clear out the minefield on the left, he could actually do force this army into an awkward position. But I don't know if this is a good move for NASD. I think he wants to try and charge across that ramp, but he is going to actually get a couple kills on some zealots. No dragoons, though. Those tanks are really very clumped up, though. If a storm doesn't land on those tanks, I think a single storm will kill off a siege tank. So
Worse, dropping zealots from War Prism right on top of the tanks would just kill so many of them. The hallmark of Flash was to get 3 bases, get 3/3, 200 supply army of a mech, and pretty much steamroll the Protoss.
he would turtle on 3 bases and get it maxed out like Super Terran Army.
3/3 mech, 200 supply, unbeatable.
Flash playing Deathball style before it was cool, folks.
Yeah, right.
There is a single Dark Templar here to prevent that expansion from being taken, though. That's kind of cute.
Yeah, he's a hero. Probably gonna die soon.
All right, well, we have a bit of a standoff here. There is a very large mineral bank here for our Protoss player. He's up to 2,400 minerals, which is very normal, actually, for this matchup. You would use this mineral bank, this excess minerals, to build a lot of additional zealots, and you'd use the zealots as like a couple of different things. You'd use them as the zealot bombs, like Net's been talking about. You'd use them to drag spider mines. You'd use them to fight against vultures, but you would use them more as a mineral dump unit in much the same way Terran uses Hellbats with mech in StarCraft 2. This now without any units that really tank for, and the tanks are in a really nice position there for NASD. AZZ needs to be really careful about how he wants to engage that, but all the vultures are gone for NASD, so he has to be careful about moving those tanks forward, because if he does manage to charge with that army, he could overwhelm those tank numbers.
That Ninja Expo is paying off already for NASD. Scouting's important.
Yeah, his economy is just so good right now. Stasis Field is on the way, as well as 2 arbiters for AZZ, who is maxed out.
There's already science vessels though.
Yeah, there are already science vessels, but again, it doesn't matter that the science vessel's there. He still has to get the EMPs off to actually make this go.
It's not there.
It's almost done. It'll be done in a moment. It'll be done before Stasis Field is done for the Arbiters. The Arbiters are actually slow in getting to the party. The Protoss does not want to engage this without Arbiters, straight up. Look at this. There's that one observer there. The science vessel sees it, but he can't actually kill it because it doesn't have anything that can shoot air units. Oh, this is actually going to be a really interesting engagement from both sides, but look how clumped those tanks are! The storms all over the tanks, so many tanks taking so much damage, the Dragoons coming down and the concave all over it, and this army for NASD is just getting absolutely slaughtered. So many tanks going down left and right, and that is going to just about be all that she wrote. Every single siege tank goes down, NASD caught out of position, and the Protoss player is completely punishing him for it.
I mean, they both have banks. Supply isn't that separate, so I think you can stay in the game a little bit longer.
Yeah, but I mean, just like StarCraft 2, the production time that it takes for the Protoss to remax is going to be a lot shorter, and I mean, that was the push that NASD wanted. He wanted to get those tanks out into a nice position, take control of the middle of the map, and he just completely lost it. The one thing that NasD does have going for him, though, is that extra expansion. So he is a base up from what AZZ thinks he is. AZZ is going to be feeling really confident about that engagement, but he doesn't know about that base up to the top left. Here comes some Vulture harassment down over here, but some nice SimCity is going to mitigate a lot of this with those photon cannons.
Vulture run by, it's not really doing much.
Yeah.
Just lost some free Vultures.
Yeah, the SimCity is exactly what you need as a Protoss player against this kind of attack. If left unchecked, those Vultures could be an absolute menace to your expansions. That Dark Templar was taken out by NASD, so he is taking his more natural 5th base down here at the bottom left. Both players are now going up to a 6th base. Is that a 6th base? That is a 6th base for AZZ, so he's going to be expanding all over the map.
He probably should have made a planetary. Getting the orbital's a bit too greedy, in my opinion.
I mean, it doesn't really help all that much either because the orbitals are really just there for the production at this point.
Yeah.
They don't really add to the economy the way that they do in StarCraft 2. We have another attack over here, but this time there are plenty of vultures to actually tank for that. But the siege tanks are a little bit late on their siege up time, and this is not going to go well for NasD. That stasis field lands on a bunch of tanks. It wasn't even necessary in my opinion. He could have actually killed all those tanks by himself. But the spider mines are detonating on a lot of dragoons, and a lot of dragoons do go down. And NasD holds, but he does lose a significant number of tanks in the process.
I want to say that trade is fairly equal.
Yeah. It was fairly even, but the economy for AZZ I think is a little bit better, and his bank is significantly better at this point. And he has no anti-air unit. He can actually just use these arbiters to pick off those weakened siege tanks right now, and there's only 2 Goliaths here to really stop them. Now, arbiters do have anti-air or air-to-ground capability, but they are not very effective combat units. These Goliaths will be able to scare them off, but there's not that many Goliaths if, say, AZZ wanted to go for a carrier switch, which I think is in the works from this point. He's got the economy to do it, and he's kept NasD stuck on these without being able to move across the map. I think a carrier switch would be well timed at this point.
Yeah, Faith is mentioning how stasis, it's projectile now. Before it was a automatic area of effect.
Yeah,
it's a little different from Brood War.
Yeah, it is definitely there for it. It's there, I think, in my opinion, for to compensate for smart casting, because you didn't have smart casting before. You could like stasis the same units like over and over and over again. I mean, Storm is not as powerful as it was in Brood War either, and I know that EMP has a projectile time as well, but that was already there. Dude, this base for NasD up here in the corner net, it's been mining so much, and he still doesn't know about it.
Yeah, that's some scouting errors on AZZ's part. It's keeping him in the game.
Yeah, there is still that base down here at the bottom at the 6 o'clock position that's been taken. But AZZ is doing the right thing by taking additional bases himself, but his upgrades are starting to look a little scary. He's at 3 attack. 3 attack is just going to be finishing up. But 3 attack for the Terran mech army is also on the way, and he's already at 2-2. So this is a very scary, highly upgraded army. There is a recall down at the 6 o'clock position. Those Dragoons are going to be able to get in there, cause quite a bit of damage to those SCVs. But those Vultures are going to be the only thing that can actually come over here to contest this for a moment. The rest of the mech army is still very, very slow. I think NasD might want to go for a pincer attack, and here it goes. The remainder of ACC's army is going to come right back into the natural expansion. Those tanks are completely out of position. These Dragoons and Zealots could go into the natural expansion and deal some damage there. The tanks are still not sieged, but there's a lot of Goliaths here to deal a lot of damage to these units of ACC, but a nice stasis field, stasising half of that army. That army is completely now out of position, not able to actually lend itself into the fight, and the expansion for NasD is forced to lift off. It is burning. A lot of units did go down for NasD in that fight, and AZZ was able to get out with the majority of his army. He's at 160 supply to 155.
The thing is, you're supposed to always be up as a Protoss, and you're always wanting to trade.
Right.
So AZZ's doing the right thing.
At these supply counts, though, Net, I think it might be more conducive for NasD to think about going on an offense, but he's very afraid of all of the pressure that his Protoss opponent could be putting on him at this point. And like I said, the Goliath counts are high enough to deal with Arbiters at the moment, but they are not high enough if AZZ wanted to go for a big carrier switch. So it does look like finally our Terran player is going to be moving out, but this is a very StarCraft 2-esque mech army move out. It's very, very vulnerable to being surrounded, and it does look like it's going to be hit from both sides. There are no Arbiters with this army, though, and an EMP does hit the majority of those Dragoons. Those Dragoons are going to go down so fast thanks to the additional damage of that EMP, and that's the kind of engagement that NasD wanted. But again, a lot of Vultures did go down, so now he has no tanking support for these siege tanks. And the siege tanks are still only moving up at one big clump. That is not the most efficient way to do it. He wants to have them leapfrogged forwards at the tanks in the back and cover the tanks in the front. And he is going to leave a large gap in his formation, which is going to allow these Dragoons to actually come back and assault the natural.
Yeah, this counterattack's going to do massive damage.
Yeah, the tanks are getting caught completely out of position. I think this is actually going to force maybe a semi-base trade situation here. There are some spider mines in position, and if some siege tanks could get deployed on the high ground, he might be able to actually hold this off. Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, these tanks up on the high ground should be enough to actually push this back.
Yeah, he's going to go for the main. It looks like that's a smart choice.
There are arbiters in position, but there's not very many units here for AZZ. He's at 176 supply. Where is all of his supply actually tied up?
Probes, 65 probes to 30 SCVs.
Oh, so this
EMPs. Oh my god.
Those arbiters are now completely useless. The zealots do get revealed for a short period, but NasD is actually going to pull back.
I don't agree with this. He should be pushing for the main.
He was looking for a base right here at the 3 o'clock position that's not actually there. The natural expansion for NasD was forced to lift, but this army is a big problem for AZZ. Another nice EMP lands on High Templar and Arbiters. There's no energy for spells on any of these units. They are very, very low on shields.
That choke point, though, is so deadly for the Protoss.
Yeah, that's not a good position for the Protoss to want to engage into. There are siege tanks in the back as well as unsieged tanks in the front. More AMPs landing all over the Protoss army, but the Zealots do manage to close position. Those Zealots are going to get right on top of those siege tanks. A nice storm lands on a lot of those siege tanks. A lot of those siege tanks going down. All the Goliaths are dead. These Arbiters can kill the remainder of these siege tanks completely uncontested. There's nothing here to actually contest the Arbiters, but there are more siege tanks coming up on the way. But again, no anti-air. There's no anti-air available for NasD. He can't fight these Arbiters. This is getting wild, Net. I think our Terran player is going to try and go for a weird base race here. He's sending up more tanks, but the tanks just can't fight the Arbiters. I don't even know why. I don't even know why AZ's continuing to make Arbiters. He could just make Scouts right now. Make Scouts. They produce so much faster.
Okay. Bunch of craziness going on here.
Alright, so the entire mech army of NasD is being pushed back, and if AZZ can manage to stabilize, this is going to get really bad for NasD in a hurry. He lost his natural expansion, he lost his 6 o'clock base, and his 5 o'clock base is starting to mine out. Meanwhile, we still have at least 3, if not 4, functioning bases for the Protoss, so he still has plenty of resources, 5k minerals actually in the bank. He's got 12 Produce producing at a time. He needs more gateways. With this much bank, he can easily afford to just throw down a lot of additional gateways and go for a lot more Zealot aggression. And he's just now scouting this base up at the top left, Net. He's just now seeing it.
There's like 600 minerals on each patch left.
Yeah, that base has been there for a long time.
It's just smart by NasD. He probably knows he's going to get attacked over here, and now he's going to defend while simultaneously killing his base.
There are units of the Terran that are moving in right now, but again, this is exactly where the army is of AZZ, so he'll be able to defend this. There are a lot of Dragoons that were just produced, but they're over on the opposite side of the map, so there is actually an opportunity here for NasD to actually get a couple of base snipes here, but that's a lot of Dark Templar and Zealots, and these siege tanks are not very good against it.
Or stasis.
There's no stasis going down. EMP lands on the Arbiters and the Dark Templar. These units are going to go down, so it does look like NasD will actually be able to get these bases over here for the Protoss player. There are Goliaths here to actually fight against these Arbiters. So a nice little victory here for NasD, who is taking another base down at the bottom left position of the map.
These stasis units are actually protecting the other tanks.
Yeah, from the Zealots, because the Zealots can't close range on them.
It's actually, I mean, the bank, though, that the Protoss has is pretty ridiculous.
It is pretty ridiculous. 4K. I mean, I keep saying it. He needs to just throw down a lot of additional gateways. Hell, he can't even go for Warp Gate tech right now and just go for a lot of Warp Prism harassment. He's got so many minerals to work with. It would be a shame for our Protoss player to die in this matchup with so much banked up.
I mean, it's been known to happen.
It would still be a shame.
Spam that Z button.
More tanks moving across the map, skirmishing with these dragoons. I was going to call them immortals for a second.
If there were more, this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, if there were immortals, this would not be happening. This is what happens when you have no immortals in StarCraft 2. Isn't it lovely, folks?
I kind of miss the immortal, but whatever.
The army for NASD is actually getting pretty scary again. Army supply, shit. Army supply is up at 110 to 112. So the army supply for both players is actually pretty even, and the worker supply has actually been evened up because of that base snipe that was actually taken out. In addition to this vulture harassment going over at the sixth base location. Oh,
base race.
Base race. This is a definite base race situation, but the Protoss army is much, much more mobile. This stasis is actually working against him. He can't actually get up that ramp. You can't attack units that are inside the stasis field. AZZ is not going to be able to get up that ramp, but the Terran army is still only at his 6th base. Meanwhile, the Protoss army is right on top of the Terran production. If he can actually get on top of this Terran production, I think he'll actually be able to force a really bad position for our Terran plate. He's right on top of those siege tanks, too. They're not going to be much of a use right now.
He focus fires. No, never mind. He can even see it because they were cloaked. Oof.
Okay.
Pretty bad for our Terran player.
It is looking very, very bad. The Dragoons are just wreaking absolute havoc, but there's a lot of tanks over here, but there's only, again, still 3 Goliaths. A couple of Arbiters would be all that it would take to destroy every single one of those units. More Zealots are now rallying down to the main base. Terran is lifting off all of his factories, trying to evacuate over to the left base. The bank for our Protoss player is dwindling by the moment, but the big problem for our Terran player is that he does not have his army. His army is only in position to assault the main base. Meanwhile, the infrastructure for our Protoss player is being reestablished up on the top left.
Oof.
158 supply now to 97. The Protoss army is getting larger and larger by the minute. These factories are not able to support this one army that's only made up of a small number of siege tanks and Goliaths in the middle of the map. Is the only thing that NASD still has left in this game. He does have some science vessels, so he could get some EMPs off on this army, but I think there might just be too many Protoss units for that to really work. We're about to find out, Net. Engagement's going to be coming down, but he's going to be assaulting into a concave, and everything sieged up, and he's sieged up into a concave. Oh, this is not a good position for NASD. All of his units are going to go down, and we are finally going to see our Terran player defeated. That would be the last stand of our Terran player. He goes down. AZZ takes the final game of this best of 3 series between NASD and AZZ, and that was Starbow. It was messy as hell for the most part. I was waiting for a carrier switch that never came, but I mean, nonetheless, that was still pretty entertaining.
My God.
Oh man, to think what would have happened in that game if NASD had split his tanks up. Because every single time that those engagements were happening, it was just like a single clump of siege tanks, all firing at once and overkilling on Zealots. And